All right, welcome everybody, and thank you for your interest in today's webinar. At RKL, we understand the difficulties that everyone is facing at home and at work during this pandemic. Our lives have been turned upside down, and as we learn to adjust to the new challenges thrown at us, we wanted to share some of the solutions that we both represent and use internally. We want you to know that, number one, we're here for you, and two, just like you, we're learning how to adapt by identifying inefficiencies in our business and solving problems to improve collaboration across our team. Which brings me to today's session. My name is Walter Goodfield, and I'm the EVP here at RKL Solutions. I've been helping mid-market companies like yours tackle business problems with Sage and Sage complementary solutions for over 25 years now. Currently, I manage our sales, marketing, and customer care teams here at RKL Solutions. I want to stress, number one, that today's session is not a sales pitch. We know that several of you are learning to adapt to working remotely, and you may be struggling with inefficiencies across the team. Again, today we want to educate you about some of the top solutions, both Sage and complementary Sage solutions that we recommend to automate manual processes and streamline operations. After the webinar, we'll provide the information that you can explore these solutions at your own pace. We know that business demand will return, and we want you to be prepared to take advantage of automated solutions when it does. Today, we recommend 10 solutions that really transform and automate manual processes. On the screen here, you can see they range in terms of Sage products, Sage complementary products, and the business problems that they solve. Number one, Adaptive Insights. Adaptive Insights is an analytical and budgeting solution. Alltech is a document management solution. Avalara automates sales tax. Sage Fixed Assets automates the fixed assets tracking as well as depreciation calculations. Expedient is a solution for hosted services and disaster recovery. Avid Exchange actually has two solutions that automate accounts payable and accounts payable payments. FlowCast automates your month-end close. Sage HRMS, which is a human resource management solution that helps you track employee activity from hire all the way through to payroll. Maviva is an employee performance solution, and AR Payments, which allow you to automate payments from your customers. Number one, we want you to know that automation does not mean eliminating team members. These solutions allow members of your team to work smarter and more strategically. And better yet, all of these solutions apply across the Sage portfolio, so it doesn't matter which Sage product you're using today. So let's jump in. First solution that we're going to talk about today is Avid Exchange. For those of you that aren't familiar, Avid Exchange is the largest business-to-business payment network in the US, serving more than 5,500 customers and 400,000 suppliers nationwide. Avid Exchange helps companies eliminate manual processes, beginning with AP invoices through AP payments. Avid Exchange has two products that we'll cover today, both Avid Invoice and Avid Pay. And when paired together, there's tremendous value in automation and supplier relationships using the Avid Exchange network. What you're seeing here today, the before automation slide, is a typical workflow that most companies go through when they receive invoices for suppliers. And it usually starts with the receipt of the supplier invoice. And I can even attest to this in our environment. When we receive a supplier invoice, the first thing that happens, it gets routed and we have a carrier that opens the mail. And that person would sort the mail and make sure that Payables get routed to the right department, receipts get routed to the right department, general mail gets routed, etc. So we get the invoice, we open the mail, it gets routed to the right individual. Once it's received by that individual, that person usually codes it. So they would validate that there's a supplier, that there's a vendor set up. They would validate and maybe match against the purchase order, and they might even code it for a general ledger journal entry. After that person codes it, it could go through an approval process where a manager or a buyer has to review, confirm, and approve. And then finally, after approval, it gets entered into the system. That's the AP invoice route. Then it comes time to pay, and you've got a payment selection person that goes through, filters payments based on due dates, amounts, whatever check run variables that you might have selected. The check is printed. When the check is cleared, you reconcile the bank. You may even follow up to confirm receipt, payment, that the transaction was posted correctly. So you've got your audit process. And then finally, you may file that invoice and that check or a copy of that check in a folder in a filing cabinet somewhere on premises. What Avid Exchange does is Avid Exchange automates that process, and you can see it removes a lot of the manual processes. Avid Exchange allows you to receive that invoice electronically. Because we're receiving it electronically with our supplier, we can route it to the right person. So it gets routed automatically where it's coded. There's a workflow process for approval, and then finally a process for selection. Let's take a look at the two Avid Invoice and Avid Pay solutions and how they automate this process from beginning to end. The first is Avid Invoice. And Avid Invoice is a web-based paperless invoice system designed to automate the way companies manage account payable documents. The module provides finance executives and AP managers with enforceable controls, powerful reporting, and added visibility to all documents. A common question that we get is, how will Avid Exchange reduce my paper consumption? And that's easy. After invoice entry, the data, the payment details, and the approvals are all managed through the invoices that are scanned. And those scanned invoices and documents are then routed through the ERP workflow process. How are invoices into the software? That's actually pretty simple as well. With Avid Exchange, you can set up an email address to send the PDF or a scanned copy of the invoice. So again, Avid Exchange Invoice allows you to set up a supplier network where your supplier sends you electronic copies of the invoice, and Avid Exchange and your Sage solution then automate the collection of that data, importing it into your ERP, and then your ERP process takes over from coding and posting to the general ledger and selecting for payment. I've stopped at the select for payment because Avid Pay automates the payment process. So if you're using Avid Exchange to automate the invoice receipt and posting into your Sage system, Avid Pay automates the payment to your supplier. And it does that simply by interfacing with your Sage solution. You would select invoices to print rather than pay. And when you do that, the payments are transmitted to your payment application, to your supplier processes, and routed through the Avid Pay network. So there's a lot of value here, especially in a remote world today that we're all experiencing, where your suppliers can send you automated invoices. The ERP recognizes those invoices, creates those transactions for you. The ERP takes over from the coding, the workflow process, and the posting. But then, just like you select invoices today to pay rather than printing a check, you'll provide the Avid Exchange e-payment network the approval to process that check remotely. So you're just transferring funds from one account to the next. Again, there's a lot of value in automating this process. Think of all the manual processes that you go through today, from the invoice to the payment, and the elimination of those manual processes, the elimination of errors, and really managing your supplier network a lot more efficiently.
Yes. Is Avid Exchange payments and ACH payments, are there fees for this clearing, and who pays that fee?
Yeah, that's a great question. The Avid Exchange payment network operates very similarly to ACH payments. We're automating that process and that exchange from your business to your supplier. It works probably more like a credit card than ACH. Yes, there are fees, and those fees are based on the volume of transactions that you process through the payment network. But I will tell you that there are also rebates, and those rebates are available based on how many suppliers use the network and how many transactions are processed through the Avid Exchange payment network. And in some cases, the ROI from automating your invoice and your payment processing has more than paid for the investment in the Avid Exchange solution and the consulting services to implement. Great question. To learn more about Avid Exchange, there's a couple assets here that you can follow up afterwards. You can visit our website for more information. We have a dedicated page for AP automation and the Avid Exchange solutions, both Avid Invoice and Avid Pay. You can also visit the Avid Exchange website. And coming up tomorrow, I know it's late notice, but Avid Exchange does have a webinar tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern time on how businesses are filling the gaps in their continuity plans with AP automation. And again, I apologize for the late notice. I can tell you that these webinars are frequently recorded. Yep. We can share that recording, and obviously there are future events coming up.
And Walt, if they register for the webinar, even if you cannot attend, you will still be sent a link for the replay. And I believe that goes for all of the webinars listed in our resources document.
Great, good point. And I apologize, I skipped through the Avid slides pretty quickly, but on each of these slides, you'll see that there are some pains, some benefits, and some questions to ask yourself as you review these solutions, if there's value in pursuing it and exploring in more detail. Good, let's move on. So we talked about automating. Yes.
Walt, there's another question. Does Avid Exchange and Pay work with Sage 500?
It does. All of the solutions that we're talking about today work with all of the Sage ERP solutions that we're talking about. So Sage 100, Sage 300, Sage 500, Sage X3, and Sage Intacct. Great question. All right. So we talked about automating accounts payable. Let's talk about automating accounts receivable. So AR payments, the reality is this space includes a lot of potential solutions and is fragmented across the Sage portfolio and marketplace. If you do some research online, you'll find that there are dozens of credit card and AR payment solutions that claim integration with Sage and multiple Sage ERP products. We've chosen here at RKL to partner with Bill.com, Paya, which is the old Sage Exchange credit card payment merchant services, and APS. Obviously, there are others, and our teams have built custom integrations for credit card payment solutions using standard API integration tools. But these are the three that we recommend. They natively integrate with the Sage solutions, which means a much quicker and easier rollout and implementation. Much like accounts payable, AR payments are triggered or can be triggered within the ERP. They're not limited to credit card, but they include ACH payments, credit card, PayPal, and other forms of merchant services. But typically they work in cash receipts, so that when you're applying a cash receipt, you're identifying the source of the payment that you're receiving. Obviously, you can trigger it from your invoices, so you can send your customer invoices with credit card payment information for faster bill pay. Some of the benefits of AR payments are obviously you receive your money much quicker than paper checks. And then finally, it makes reconciling a lot easier. You've got all of that information collected and stored within the ERP. So AR payments allow you to increase efficiency and save time. It helps with your audit readiness by having a log of quick recollection and reference of the cash receipts. And honestly, it's easy to get up and running quickly. You can start receiving payments in days, not weeks or months, by implementing any of these three solutions. And I'm going to show you a quick sample of what we've done on our website. So as I transition here, from our website, you can see we've got a resource page and secure online bill pay. Now, in the spirit of full disclosure here, we're using Paya as our payment processor internally here at RKL. And you can see real quickly, we've got a secure payment page where we're collecting some information about the invoice and the dollar amount. And when I submit, you'll see it's actually launching, and it's asking me for the CAPTCHA information. It's actually launching a secure payment site on Paya to enter my credit card information, my expiration date, and my CVV code. So this is an example of what we've done with our website, a quick and easy launch to capture payment information and allow your customers to pay you via credit card. Obviously, there are fees associated with that, and the fees are based on, again, on the volume of transactions that you run through any of these payment providers.
Well, we have a question.
Okay.
How does AR payment interface with a lockbox in Intact?
That's a really good question. It looks like Gorman submitted that question. Danica, if you can take that offline, let's route that directly to Dave's C-Slack. If we can answer it before we log off, we will, Gorman. If not, Danica, David, and I will follow up directly and make sure we answer that question with you, and copy Lisa Gillette, your CSM. Great question.
Okay.
Yep. Good. So that's an example of AR payments. I showed you an example of launching it from our page, which is, again, is very simple. These things can be implemented in days. And again, it's a nice, quick and easy way to replace the manual process of receiving cash, posting cash, and then preparing deposit slips and bank information. Why are customers obviously integrating AR payments? Number one, they've got a lot of uncollectible AR invoices. They've got a collection call process, which is very manual and time consuming. And quite frankly, sometimes during the cash receipts entry, mistakes are made. Cash is applied to the wrong invoice. It's the wrong amounts. And then you've got adjustments and debit and credit memos that need to be processed to correct incomplete or incorrect transactions. Obviously, AR payments improves your cash flow, but it's a nice, secure online way for your customers to pay you 24/7. And again, in this remote workforce world that we're living in right now, we know that everybody is on flex hours. They're working at different times, accommodating, their personal lives, their work lives, and again, AR payments is a nice way to adapt to the circumstances. If you're interested, again, you can visit our website for more information. Again, in the spirit of full disclosure, our website focuses on the Paya solution. That's the example that I've shown, and that's the solution that we integrate with here at RKL. But any of the 3 publisher pages are available here, whether it's Paya, APS Payments, or Bill.com. And again, before I transition, we work with other payment solution providers. These are the 3 that we recommend, but our teams, our development teams for each of the products has completed integration to other payment providers that aren't represented on this slide. Any questions, Danica, before I transition? It looks like we got one. So can AR payments invoice or receive customer down payments on a sales order before invoicing on the final invoice? And the answer is yes. Any of these solutions can receive a deposit. So if you have a sales order with prepayment terms, you can receive the cash. Some of the systems apply the deposit better than others when it comes to reconciling the deposit and the AR invoice. And I'll leave it at that. Some of the solutions require a manual process like Sage 500, where the match doesn't happen automatically. And others like Sage Intacct and Sage X3 actually match the prepayment deposit on the sales order to the AR invoice, so that when you print your AR invoice to the customer, it's going to show either the partial amount that was applied or an invoice for $0 due because it was prepaid in full. I hope that makes sense. And if you have any questions, we can follow up afterwards based on the specific Sage product that you're using. FlowCast. So we talked about AP automation in terms of invoice and payment. We looked at AR automation in terms of cash receipts. We're going to completely switch gears here now and talk about month-end processing. And FlowCast is one of our premier partners to help with the month-end close management. It was created by accountants for accountants and simplifies the month-end close with a centralized checklist and automated tie-outs. What you're seeing on the screen are 3 different FlowCast examples. You've got a dashboard, which shows you your progress from month-end close and shows you what's been prepared, what's been received, what's been reconciled. The second screenshot is a checklist. And I'm sure most of you have a checklist or a sequence of items that you go through your month-end close. FlowCast actually automates that workflow and that process flow. It integrates with your ERP so that as you're managing the checklist, you're completing these activities within the Sage ERP solution. And then finally, it allows you to reconcile the differences. So FlowCast keeps track of your progress, your activity, and helps you reconcile any mismatches that you may have before closing the books. Again, with FlowCast, your entire accounting staff knows what to do and when it's due, no matter how large the team. It's cloud-based, so you and the entire team always know where you stand with real-time status by task, entity, and team number, regardless if they're in-house or remote. So again, say goodbye to manually entering data. This FlowCast seamlessly integrates with all of the Sage ERP products, plus your related Excel workbooks in your cloud storage. It ensures everything is tied out, and the built-in completeness check assures that all the accounts are reflected in FlowCast in real time. What are some of the benefits of FlowCast? Number one, let's talk about the pains. It's not uncommon for many of our customers to struggle with month end because either the team is decentralized, the systems, you've got multiple systems, you've got multiple processes, or maybe you just lack consistent documentation and disciplines for month end close. We do know that FlowCast greatly reduces the month-end close. For some customers, from several days and weeks down to as few as 2 or 3 days. So there's real ROI and value in eliminating manual processes and automating month-end close, while also minimizing errors and increasing your audit readiness. If you're interested and you want to learn more about FlowCast, you can visit our website. Again, we have a dedicated web page for FlowCast. You can visit the publisher page. And again, tomorrow, sorry for the late notice, but tomorrow there is a webinar for FlowCast at 3 p.m. And there's a demo to walk through the strategies for a faster and more accurate month-end close. What's great about tomorrow's session is it does qualify for CPE credit. And again, as Danica mentioned, if you're unable to join, feel free to register, and the replay will be available upon completion of the webinar, or if you're unable, they will send it afterwards. I'm going to take a time out and check to see if there are any questions. Danica, any questions so far? Let's keep moving. I've got one more, and then we can open it up for some Q&A. Let's talk about DocLink. Some of you may be familiar with Alltech DocLink. The DocLink solution has been in the Sage marketplace and portfolio for several years now. They've been a premier solution for Sage ERP. Alltech automates the data capture, document storage, retrieval, and send. And the best way to think about Alltech is it becomes your online file storage cabinets. So it automates the collection, beginning with the capture of your data, whether that's external or internally captured. OCR capabilities allow it to smartly recognize fields and data elements for mapping. But again, Alltech automates the data collection and data capture and data storage. So you're replacing storage cabinets. Maybe you're working with outside vendors to store documents, or you've got offsite storage where you're storing your documents. Again, Alltech begins with the capture process. It allows businesses to capture and index documents in all shapes and forms from any source. Then there's a powerful workflow configurable engine. This allows these documents to be routed through various business processes and teammates as transactions occur in the Sage ERP. So we talked earlier about the AP invoice with Avid Invoice. Avid does some of this, right? So far, Avid would be very similar to Alltech in that it captures, or we capture the image, we send it through the process, and it integrates with the ERP. What makes Alltech different is their online and in the cloud file storage and recollection. So what's different about Alltech is that you can retrieve these documents. The best example that I can give you is some of you may be using Sage ERP document attach capabilities, where you scan an image separately and then you go into your Sage ERP solution and you do a file attachment through a thumbnail or through a manual process. That document is then stored in the ERP, and anybody with permissions can access it and review it and retrieve it. Again, what Alltech does is it automates that process. So it automatically captures, routes it through the right person, allows you to retrieve the document, and then obviously deliver the document if you want to share it. And it does that by integrating seamlessly with a two-way synchronization with your Sage ERP products. In addition to scanning images and documents that you get, either customer or vendor documents, Alltech has what's called a smart form solution, which is a configurable document that allows you to capture information internally by routing it through approval. In a distribution and manufacturing environment, we use smart forms to capture quality data. So again, using that a document image, we route the quality data through the purchase order receipt, through the manufacturing process, maybe even through pick, pack, ship. And along the way, we're capturing key critical information about that transaction. The smart form captures not only a static document, but it can capture enhanced live data throughout the supply chain, and again, route it through processes for workflow reviews, for retrieval, and for delivery either externally to your customers or internally to your teams. Again, why DocLink? When we talk to customers about DocLink, we really look for teams that have piles of paper everywhere. They're struggling, especially during the audit process, to quickly identify, locate, and retrieve documents. Or maybe they're growing, either their teams are growing or they're growing across multiple physical sites. I can tell you an example of how RKL uses Alltech. Number one, we do have multiple sites, and occasionally me and my team will see emails saying, hey, is so-and-so traveling from the Lancaster office to the Harrisburg office? And we used to see, a physical carrier or an admin person run these documents across offices, whether they're on site or in some cases, 20 to 30 minutes away. Obviously, Alltech eliminates that manual paper process, and by capturing it and recording it and storing it, that cloud file storage cabinet is available for any user from any location. That's example number one. Example number two is even in a single office utility or site, we often see inter-office memos that need to be shared. So maybe think of that as AP approval process where it gets routed to somebody that opens the mail, that maybe then approves it, and then enters it. Again, with Alltech, number one, we can scan that document, we can distribute that document electronically, and then people are accessing it via the cloud storage instead of tracking manual papers and inter-office memos, from a paper-based manual system. So there's a lot of value, especially in today's world, with the online file cabinet storage and archive document retrieval. If you'd like to learn more about Alltech, again, you can visit our webpage. We've got a dedicated page for the document management solution. Feel free to visit the publisher page, alltechinc.com. And like the others, they have two upcoming webinars, one on May 6th, which walks you through going touchless, obviously going remote, and automating this process. And then again on May 20th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, walking you through the paperless process and the business reasons for removing manual workflow automation.
Hey,
Danica,
Walt, we have a question.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you do OCR document searches?
Absolutely. So OCR is simply just capturing the information. It's capturing it in a way that recognizes, a vendor code, a date field, an amount, an item, and it starts mapping that information to your ERP. During the testing phase, that's when we start to build that data and that database of OCR searches and capabilities. So it's an artificial intelligence solution that actually becomes smarter based on the more transactions that we process and record. But yes, any of that data is captured, it's recorded, it's converted to your Sage ERP system, and obviously when you're filtering for your search indexes, you can search based on ERP data and physical data traits from that scanned document. And again, it's not just a document. It could be the source might be an email file, or a flat file. There's all types of different ways to get data in and automate these solutions. Great question. I want to, those were the four key solutions that I wanted to talk about. Obviously, if you recall the slide, there are others. And with the time left, we can review any of them. But really, when it comes to automation, those are the four key areas that we look at to help our customers. Automating accounts payable, automating accounts receivable, automating month end, and helping with that automation of document management. All four of those clearly have easy ROI. They're available across the Sage ERP platform, and again, they integrate pretty seamlessly and with a quick, rapid implementation. Throughout the presentation, I've given you some sites to visit for RKL content, but also the publisher content and the webinars. If you have any questions, I just wanted to take a moment to talk about our team. If you're a Sage 100 or Sage 300 customer on the West Coast, Lindsay Palladino is your dedicated CSM. On the East Coast, Michelle Ladano is your Sage 100 contact. On the West Coast, Mike Scher is your Sage 500 and Sage X3 CSM. On the East Coast, Gia Lane is your contact for Sage 500 and Sage X3. And presently, Lisa Gillette covers the United States for all of our Sage Intacct clients. Again, we're going to share this with you after. If you didn't know who your CSM was, though, these are the contacts. The best way to reach out to them is via email for additional information. I mentioned that there are other automated solutions, and if there are questions, I'd be happy to talk about some of them today. Even though we didn't cover all of them, each of these solutions has the same format, where there's an informational slide about the product, the value benefit statements, and then additional resources for follow-up at your own pace. I did notice, Danica, we had another question, and I'll take this one. The question is, we're on Sage 100 and struggling with remote connectivity. And I'll take that one. The question was pertaining to Sage 100, but the reality is Sage 100, Sage 300, and Sage 500 are on-premise solutions, meaning for everybody on this call that uses these products, you know that now that you're not in the office, the only way for you to access those solutions from your home or from a remote work site is through remote desktop connectivity. That's not going to change. These products, Sage 100, 300, and 500, will continue to be client-server applications, and the only way you connect to them is through the remote desktop connectivity. However, Expedient, one of the partners that I didn't talk about, does offer hosted virtual machines and disaster recovery solutions. We recommend Expedient for customers that don't have IT technical resources at your disposal. Expedient helps host that environment. And although the client-server interaction doesn't change, what Expedient does do is help simplify that process for you and move that from an internal IT administration aspect to an outsourced IT solution. So Expedient is a great solution for Sage 100, 300, and 500 customers struggling with that on-premise client-server, both compatibility, but also remote accessibility. Another good question. We're at 45 minutes in. I've covered the four solutions that I wanted to talk about today. We've talked a little bit about Expedient. You're going to get the webinar playback and the cheat sheet for each solution, the benefits, and where and when to get more information on your own. If there aren't any questions, this concludes today's session. I'll give everybody a little bit of time back. Like I said, we will publish the content as well as share this presentation. Again, I want to thank everybody for your time today. If you have any questions about these solutions, feel free to reach out directly to me or your CSM that I covered on the previous slide. Again, on behalf of everybody here at RKL, we want to make sure you stay safe, you stay healthy. We're here to help. We know that business will return soon, and when it does, we want you to know that we've got some solutions that are really going to help you automate some of the manual processes and inefficiencies that you have today. Again, thanks everybody. This concludes today's webinar.